Hi, everybody. It is Lorene Quick again, and welcome back to Unscripted and Unstoppable, the podcast for women 50 and beyond who are reimagining what's possible in their next chapter. Today, we are going to be diving into a topic that often gets surface treatment, in my opinion, but it deserves so much more depth, and that topic is self-care. And I'm not talking about, again, bubble baths or pedicures or drinking juice, green juices or smoothies, although all of those things can be lovely and have their place in our lives. What I'm talking about today is real self-care, the kind that requires boundaries, self-respect, the kind that requires a willingness to say no without guilt. That kind of self-care heals old patterns of people pleasing. It heals old patterns of codependence, and it helps us to live our lives more fully and richly. And joining me today is someone who lives and breathes this work. Karolina Ross is a well-being coach who helps women reconnect with their bodies, honor their needs, and rewrite their relationships through self-care. Karolina's approach is soulful, it's embodied, and it is refreshingly real. Whether you're just beginning to explore self-compassion and self-care, or you've been working on it for a while, for years even, I promise you this conversation will spark something new. So, my friends, let's get right into it. Karolina, I want to start with your definition of self-care. How do you describe it when you're helping a woman go deeper than the surface level cliches?
Hello, thank you, Lorraine. And yeah, self-care. To me, self-care is a process of establishing healthy habits and behaviors
Hmm.
to ensure holistic well-being. So, like you mentioned, setting boundaries, uh, being compassionate to yourself. But we also talk about boring stuff, healthy eating, exercising, um, making sure that your environment is clean and tidy so it's not stressing you out. There's loads of things when we think about self-care, which we don't think as a society. As a society, we see self-care as bubble bath,
Hmm.
spa day, um, weekend away with friends, something that you do off and on. And I'm talking about self-care that you practice every day. And loads of those habits are actually habits that need time and patience because they're not easy, because they're boring.
They're boring, but they're essential, right? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. And what to me, what you're really saying is self-care is a way of life.
absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
and while you can have all those fun things, I mean, those are kind of events, they're special things that you do for yourself. But self-care as a way of life is a disciplined approach to taking care of yourself so that you're healthy and
Yeah,
ultimately happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Self-care
So,
is like if you're a mom, you do everything for your child to thrive.
mhm,
If you're a partner, you do everything for your partner to thrive.
absolutely.
But quite often, we forget to do the same for ourselves.
And that really takes me right into my next question, which is, Carolina, so many women who are 50 and older have spent years putting themselves last. And
Mhm.
we've been taught that's a noble thing to do. What shifts in our way of thinking about ourselves when we begin to see self-care as a way of living, as an act of respect instead of just an indulgence?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's really great question. Yeah, I think we generally as a society, we have a problem how we perceive our role as women.
Hmm.
So the more we do, the better value for us. We're more loved, we're more respected, we're more wanted.
Exactly.
However, when you've been doing it for many, many years, at some point you feel peed off, resentful, angry, annoyed, and you think, why am I doing everything by myself? Why they don't help me?
Hmm. So we
Well,
build
actually,
of anger and resentment.
yeah, you've created those conditions,
Hmm.
and now we have a problem. When you become focusing on yourself, when you become focusing on your own needs, you realize that actually through self-care, through setting boundaries, through saying no, uh, you rediscover yourself and you realize that your value, your worthiness is not seen through your actions, but is seen through who you are, through your values, through your personality, through
Right.
you as a person.
So it's really about self-worth.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
it's coming to terms with you may have always thought, well, people love me because I serve them, because I support them, my husband,
Yeah.
my children, my family, my friends even, right? What do I do for
Yeah.
them? And it's not that you have to stop doing those things. I mean, there you
Mm.
can still give of yourself, but you need to understand, and I think I grapple with this a lot as I've gotten older. I need to
Mm.
come to terms and understand that people love me for who I am, not for what I do.
Yeah.
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 And that's what shifts in your mind when we start to live a life that is self-care. We
Yeah.
and we're important.
You become your own person. You become curious. You become confident. You become um, brave. And you realize that actually it doesn't matter that I didn't cook today, that I didn't clean today. They still love me. They actually want to spend time with me instead of me being tired with cooking and cleaning.
Exactly. And so, okay, this brings up this whole idea of codependence and how we create that in our families or with the people that we love. So, when you're
Mm.
working with a client, Carolina, how do you help them see the difference between what I would call healthy independence versus codependence?
Mm.
And how does self-care fit in with all of that?
Right. We've all heard the expression tough love.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't call it tough love. I call it love, love. Because when you think about it, I'm going to give an example of children because I'm a mom.
Hmm.
If you think about your children, when they are little, when they grow up, you do everything to help them to become independent and confident.
Yes.
So at some point, you back off and allow them to tie their shoes, zip their coat. And then something happens. Suddenly, you have an adult child. The adult child starts their own life, and you feel insecure. You're not needed.
Hmm.
So the only way you may be needed is to help them Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually once worked with a client who decided to do early retirement so she could have more time for herself and start looking after herself. Instead of doing that, she started being a carer to her father and mother,
Okay.
and she had two grown-up children who lived with her as well. And when we started talking, she said, you know what, I am feeling exhausted. I really am tired. I am fed up with doing everything for everyone. So we started exploring. And so what happened was, instead of giving her father space to explore his new role as a carer to his wife, she took over without allowing him to explore for himself what his abilities are.
Uh-huh.
Codependence. With her grown-up children, she said, well, when I come back from my parents, I have to cook, I have to clean, I have to wash, all the domestic chores. I'm like, all right. What about your children? Well, they don't do anything because it's easier for me to do it because it's quicker and we can avoid clash because otherwise they will get upset. But at some point I said, do you realize that you're actually disabling your children, your adult children? One of them was 37.
Yeah.
And that was a light bulb moment for her. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've created conditions for them to do nothing. They got used to it. And now I'm angry at them because they don't do anything. But actually, I allowed them to do that.
And in a way, in both situations with with her father, not allowing him the opportunity to care for his wife, and I'll caution myself with that by saying it's not that she didn't allow it, it's that she just jumped right in and
Yeah.
provided that. And so it wasn't something he even probably considered, right? Oh, like well, of
Yes,
course my daughter would take care of her. Why not? And then at the
absolutely.
same time, her children, she's not saying, I want you to be grown adults who can make your own dinners and do your own laundry and clean up after yourselves. And oh, by the way, maybe even support your mother on occasion with some kindness.
Mm,
Instead, I'm going to martyr myself. I'm going to take this to an extreme example. I'm going to
yeah,
martyr myself to the point where now I'm angry, resentful, and probably making myself sick.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it happens. It
that is
happens
codependence.
quite often.
More often
The
than I care.
what I see, there is a pattern when you're a woman 50 plus, you become to see more and more where you could change something. But because you've created those unhealthy habits and behavior for such a long time,
Mhm.
A, you don't know how to change it by yourself, and B, your family got used to it. So it's even more difficult because no one likes changes, especially when they're comfortable for others.
And I could see that this would be an extraordinarily challenging thing to change. Once you've created it, okay, so the first thing would be don't create it. But then, of course, some of us already have, and we're in the throes of it.
Yeah,
So the next question really is around, well, what do we do about this, right? How do we shift that so that it's no longer this, it's dysfunctional. It's basically
it
dysfunction.
is.
Yeah. How do we
It
change
is.
that, Carolina?
I think the first question would be to ask yourself, do I want to change it?
Hmm.
And why do I want to change it? What's behind that? And then when you know your why, you can actually start talking to your family. Instead of saying, I'm not doing it anymore. Do it yourself. You can do it in a very polite way, which is write down everything what you would like to stop doing
Mm-hmm.
and you would like to delegate to somebody else. Sit down with your family and say, I am really tired. I'm really exhausted. I I need your help. These are things which I find difficult to continue with. Is there anything from the list you could actually take over from me? And that would be a great help. And that would create some space for me to start looking after myself, which I really need at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So it really
Mhm.
begins with getting really clear about what you want and don't want to be doing
Yeah,
to, in support and love of your family, and then having that big conversation with them around asking them for help to pick up a more
yeah,
responsibility, to take on more of their own um, care and their own self-care.
yeah. Because the problem is when you don't say that you need help, when you don't say that you're struggling or finding something difficult, no one is going to take over from you because if you say, I'm fine,
Hmm.
you're fine. Yeah. So
Well,
you need to be clear. You need to be really good in communication, in communicating your own needs. But you need to start with yourself.
and I'm also guessing you probably need to start small. You don't want to say, okay, so now, everyone's in charge of meals and laundry, and I'm not doing any of it. It's more around maybe we start with the meals or we start with the laundry and then we shift that
Yeah.
time to more and more responsibility. So it's not like a big shift all at once.
No, like I say, if you share your to-do list with the rest of the family and you ask them, here's the responsibilities I would like to reduce, you give ownership to other people. What is it from the list you could take over
Great.
from me?
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of the family members thinking, oh, she's making us to do it, they take ownership so they feel in control. I've chosen this task and I'm responsible for it, so I will be
Great. So
doing it.
it's not you assigning people jobs. It's more of
No.
here's the list of things to do, and which one or which ones can you take on for me?
Yeah,
So it's really their choice. Yeah.
so it's the interdependency, not codependency, not
Sweet.
me telling you what to do. I'm choosing how to help you.
And it's interesting. I think about this and I think about the example that you just gave, and it seems like, well, that would be really obvious to me what needs to happen. But it might be a little bit more subtle in some of our lives, right? Where we're not really even aware how much we give and give and give to other people. So
Yeah,
it really does require some honest self-reflection around. And again, I goes back to for me. I wanted my children as they grow up to be fully functional adults. I wanted them to thrive and to contribute to the world. And so in order to do that, I had to teach them, how to do their laundry, how to
yeah,
manage their checkbook, how to do all this stuff, and not do it for them. Uh,
yeah,
but we still have pieces of ourselves that we overgive is a word I would use, where we jump in and deal with problems that actually our adult children probably don't even want us to do. If you were to, okay, so let's say I worked with you and I got to a place where I felt like this was really a good balance now, where my
hmm,
children were doing the things they needed to do to be adults and functional in the world and contributing to the family. And so I guess my question would be, what would you advise me, or how would you advise me all around? When would I might slip back into that martyr, self-sacrifice, overgiving kind of mode, how would I know that? And what advice would you give me to help me prevent myself from that happening?
So, because it's a habit, you need to be aware that it's going to take a while before it will stop existing.
Okay.
I would remind you that you're not responsible for your adult children. Your adult children are not responsible for you. You're not responsible for how your children react or what they will feel when you say to them, I don't want to do it, or I want to do it. And I would encourage you to ask yourself question, what's behind me wanting to help them? What's behind me wanting to jump in? Am I needing some validation? Am I needing some um, feeling more worthy? Am I feeling lonely
Mm-hmm.
and I need some attention?
Or all of the above, right? Yes.
So yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
it's really, I think it's really, really powerful question. What's behind me wanting to jump in?
I think it's a
Because whatever we do, whatever action we take, there's something from inside that pushes us to do it.
mm-hmm.
We often say no. Um, sorry, we often say yes to things we don't want to do. Why? Because we don't want other people to feel upset. Because we feel because we fear rejection.
Well, or we feel that that's why they love us, is because we're always there when they turn to us, right? Uh,
Yeah,
So it's a habit you want to remember, and even though you feel like you're giving it up, there may be things that trigger you that make you want to take it back on. And so
yeah,
you have to be honest with yourself about what is your intentions here and what are your needs, what's needed. And I take this to a whole nother level around being a grandparent. So,
mm,
my adult children have grown up and gone, and now my daughter just recently had a child, and so there's this urge to just jump in and always be available and always drop everything I'm doing in order to help
yeah,
her. And I think that was good for the first few months of baby being born. You want to support your children, you want to support the grandchild, but it can't be your way of life. Well, I don't want it to be my way of life. Let's put it that way. So I have to be
mm,
thoughtful around when I sign up for things. Is it because I am coming from a place of love and support that's balanced, or
yeah,
or am I trying to get myself back in that mode of I am everybody's servant and I support everyone else
yeah,
and place myself and my own needs second. So
yeah,
an introduction of a grandchild or grandchildren in your life could become another trigger for this, right?
absolutely,
And I go
absolutely.
back to it's not a habit, it's not a habit that we're talking about. This is really it's a place of, do I value myself and my wishes, my dreams, my goals, my desires, or am I always
Mm,
putting myself second to other people, which creates that resentment and anger that doesn't do good for me, that is not a
yeah,
good thing for me. So
yeah.
yeah.
But with grandchildren, you need to remember that you've had your turn. You've raised your children,
Yes.
and now it's your daughter's turn to learn and make mistakes. You want to prevent her from making these mistakes,
Mm.
but actually, she needs those mistakes to learn.
Yep, she does. And if I always jump in and save her, quote unquote, then she
Yeah,
gets that learning. She never gets that experience. And I'm not allowing her the fullness of being a mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So sometimes you need to just remind yourself, you've had your turn.
Yes. I've had my turn. And now I get to be a grandmother, which is a completely different role,
Mhm.
which in my opinion is a whole lot more fun. So when we started, we talked about this idea that self-care is about self-love, it's about self-compassion, and that
Mhm.
that is a cornerstone, a foundation for well-being. What does self-compassion, what does self-love actually look like um, in our lives as we age
Mhm.
and deal with all the things that go on in the world and our challenges?
Yeah. To me, self-compassion is really simple. You're compassionate towards yourself the same way you're compassionate to other people. You talk to yourself the same way you would talk to other people. What often happens is we are very harsh to ourselves.
Hmm.
We tend to criticize ourselves. Um, a lot of people use names like negative names for themselves.
Hmm.
And this language is the language you wouldn't use towards your daughter. You wouldn't use towards your grandchild or your partner or your friend, would you? No.
No.
But for some reason, we do that to ourselves. So to me, self-compassion is watching my language and reminding myself that actually I am enough. I've done enough. I have enough. Instead of pushing pressure on myself, I should have, I
Mm.
must. It's, yeah, to me, it's very simple. Going back to basics, start treating yourself like you would treat your friend, your child, your partner, your parent, whoever is around you.
Hmm. And there's such a gentleness to that as we're sitting here talking, it's like my energy is just calming down into this place of my heart.
Yeah,
And
you're giving yourself attention.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's calming. That's very calming to me. That just
yeah.
whole idea. Okay, great, great. Can you share with us maybe a time when you personally had to shift away from other people telling you that you were great, you were fantastic, to a place where you were able to pull from your self-love and see your own value. You affirmed your own value as a person, or if
Mhm.
maybe a client.
Yeah. So I spent most of my career working in non-for-profit organizations supporting vulnerable adults,
Mhm.
usually mental health and disabilities. So I was always on the front line, always helping, always saying yes. I was always taking extra mile compared to my colleagues. Um, until one day I hit burnout and I couldn't do anything. I hardly could move because my body said, you know what, I've got enough. You haven't been listening to me for a very long time. I've got enough. So I was signed off with burnout. And obviously, my first reaction was heal quickly, recover speedily, use as many options as possible, and in a week, go back to work.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So I remember I felt really guilty. I felt really uncomfortable. And I felt like a fraud because I was a mental health specialist. And here I am, signed off with burnout. I should know better.
Right.
And the fact that I was mental health specialist helped me to actually shut myself down and start reflecting, okay, everything what you've done so far didn't exactly work. So let's try something new. That's when I discovered that going back to basics, like making sure that I eat what is good for me,
Mhm.
making sure that I have enough rest, making sure that I'm listening to my body actually. When my body says, I need to lie down, I go and lie down instead of maybe I should do the windows first. So gradually I started healing.
Mhm.
And that was the time when I discovered self-compassion. And I reminded myself, actually, you've done enough. You've been working very, very hard. Now it's time to start looking after yourself. So self-compassion, positive psychology, that was my discovery, where I started focusing on positives around me, little things that was bringing me joy instead of big goals.
Mhm.
I was focusing more on little steps, taking me to that big goal, which was my recovery.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, step by step, I started realizing that, you know what, the whole pressure I was putting myself, it was me. No one has ever said to me, you need to be doing so much, otherwise you will be fired.
Right.
No, my husband has never told me, I am expecting you to cook freshly prepared meal every day, and I am expecting you to clean the house every day so it's spotless. No, it was me.
Mhm.
And when I realized that actually that's the wrong way of thinking, the pressure just let go. I felt lighter, happier. Um, I'm in a very, very happy, good place with myself
Mhm.
since then.
So when I think about that, it's like when we moved to self-compassion, when we are able to embrace self-love, we learn that what other people think and what they might even say in the end doesn't really matter. Um,
Yeah,
we slow down enough to get clear on who we are, whether we've lived our life and our day with integrity,
yeah,
and the focus is on taking care of us. I, I'm
yes,
all I'm always struck by this story about if you know the body, what I'm told is the heart is an organ that pumps blood to all other organs. But the first organ that it gives blood to is itself.
mm,
Because if it's not healthy and able to function, it can't give support to all those other organs, right?
yeah,
So it makes itself a priority. And we have to do that, even if it feels like it's at the expense of what other people think of us,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But what I've learned is no matter what you do, whether you will be doing loads of things or you won't be doing a lot of things, there will always be somebody who will criticize you. There will always be somebody who won't be happy with what you've done. But
But
it's their problem. It's
exactly.
their problem, not mine.
Hmm.
I'm happy with myself. I'm feeling at ease with myself. I know that I've done my best, and that's enough for me.
And so to me, it's like the ultimate of this whole process is that as you move into living a life of self-care and as you actually become more and more aware of who you are and what you want, and you express that to those people around you that you love and that love you, um, what begins to happen then is you do shift into a place where you feel the most you feel comfortable saying, I know who I am and I know that what I do is right and I don't need any external validation. I don't need anyone
Yeah,
to tell me I'm good or I'm whatever.
yeah,
I get that from myself now and
yeah,
I follow and I'm true to my heart.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. A while ago, I did an experiment among my friends, and I asked them a simple question
Mhm.
without explaining anything. Um, I was asking, "Can you answer me the question, who am I?"
Mhm.
So a lot of people were answering the question, well, I am a mom, I am a grandmother, I am a wife, I am a frontliner, or I am a chef, or whoever. And the list went on and on. And it was really interesting because since my burnout recovery, since my well-being self-care journey, I answered that question in totally different way.
And how would that be? What did you say? What would you say?
I would say I am a person who likes nature. I am a person who likes color blue. I am a person who loves reading books. I am a person who likes learning,
And,
and so on and so on.
what you've done there is you've shifted away from defining yourself in terms of the roles that you had to defining yourself in terms of the things that bring you joy,
Yeah,
the joy in your life. And that's
yeah,
huge. That's a huge shift in identity.
it
I
is.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if I ask myself that question and I can respond in some other way besides what roles I fill, that would tell me that I'm making progress in this area.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Well, so for the last question I want to ask you today, how can a women begin to set boundaries in their lives without any guilt, especially with the people that they love deeply? I think we've talked about this whole idea of self-care is it's a radical act of self-care that you wish every woman would commit to the after listening to this session. How do we do that? What would be your one piece of advice for us?
To set boundaries,
Hmm.
I would say ask yourself why it's important to you. Why do you want to set those boundaries? Be very clear, very specific. And then you can write it down what you would like to say to that person.
Okay.
Like the other day, I was talking to a client and she actually had that problem. She wanted to tell her friend that she didn't want to go out on Friday night. She would wanted to stay home and relax. But she was really scared to say anything because she didn't want her friend to get upset or disappointed.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay. So she came up with very simple sentence. Hey, I've had a really tough week at work. I'm really tired. I need to recharge my batteries. I'm gonna stay home today. Have a great night. There was a plan B.
Hmm.
If the friend came back saying, "Oh, thanks for spoiling my night," she was really afraid of that kind of response. So I said, "Okay, what could you tell her. And she came up with really nice, gentle response. I am really sorry you feel that way. I respect that, but I need that time for myself. I really need to recharge my batteries.
Hmm. So I want to dig a little bit deeper here because I think for some of us we don't even know we need boundaries, right? But I mean, I
Mm,
think this becomes something as we begin to love ourselves. We start to say, I'm putting myself first, and
yeah.
to do that, I need to set some ground rules around whatever that might be. So for me, for example, I tend to go to sleep around 9 o'clock at night.
Hmm.
So my phone's off. I don't answer any calls or I don't, I've set a boundary in the sense that I didn't tell anyone, don't call me after 9 o'clock, but I've set a boundary because I don't answer my phone. It doesn't
Yeah,
ring, doesn't make
I'm
any
the same.
noise. But let's say somebody violated that. Let's say somehow someone knocked on my door at 9:30 and wanted to visit with me, just a friend dropping by. So I would feel violated, but then I would probably invite them in anyway and go, oh, well, let me make you a cup of tea or something and we can sit and talk. But in
Mm,
that situation, I could come back and say, it's late. And for me, I usually go to bed at 9 o'clock. So as much as I would love to visit with you right now,
yeah.
I need my sleep. So
Mm.
can we set another time? Or, I mean, what would I do in that situation? How would you advise me as your client?
I would probably advise you with the same what you've just
But
said.
yeah.
Um, I think it's really important for you to remember what's good and important to you. If you have someone who visits you 9:30 at night, and it's an ongoing thing, they don't respect you. You've already told them that this is your
Sleep.
sacred time. You're not having guests. You go to bed at 9, and they don't respect that. Sometimes you have to be quite abrupt, I would say, by not answering the door.
Okay.
If it's one thing, you can open the door, you can explain, and they will respect it. But if you have someone who doesn't respect boundaries, you have to be really strict. I'm not on answering the door. I've already told you
Right.
that this is my time.
So we know when a boundary is needed when we feel violated.
Mm.
Is that would be a good way to know that I need to set a boundary here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you feel inside that there's something not right, that you feel not comfortable with something, that's a signal for you that your boundaries have been violated.
Okay.
I know that in my case, when I get angry, that means that my boundaries have been violated. That's my red flag. When I get uptight, when I get snappy, when I get angry, that means that my boundaries have been violated.
Good. And then you pause and reflect back what's going on here and what do I
Yeah,
need?
yeah.
And then how do I best communicate that to the person that I'm having this situation with, whatever the situation is. Okay.
Mm.
And so that becomes, I mean, saying no to other people becomes another form of self-love, another form of compassion, and another form of care, self-care.
Yeah, because by saying no to other people, you're saying yes to yourself.
Absolutely. I love the way you just said that. It makes perfect sense. All right, great. Any last comments? Anything else that you would like to share today with our listeners?
Um, I would I would like to encourage everyone to try one thing for the next couple of days, which is just take a breath before you say yes, before you say no, before you're going to say something to somebody, before you agree to anything, before you're about to do something, just take a breath. Take a breath, take a pause, and have a think. Do I want it?
Or
And
or is this something I feel like I'm supposed to do, I have to do?
yeah,
And is that if it's that, then it's time to really think seriously about saying no.
yeah, absolutely. And if you're interested in knowing a little bit of my background, you can find me on my website, karolinaross.com. And
Right.
I've also have a free gift, free handbook with few self-care ideas, free, easy, doable ideas that you can use here and now to reduce your stress, to pause and have a think
Well, Carolina, we
and
will be
start
sure to
reflecting.
include a link to your website and that free gift in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Let me start to wrap things up by just saying thank you so much for this rich and very grounding conversation. I know
Thank you.
I am walking away with a deeper understanding of what it truly means to care for myself. And that's not just a practice, but it's a way of life.
It is. Yeah, but it's a beautiful way of life. And honestly, you feel happier, you feel braver, you feel yourself. You just, yeah, you.
Perfect. For those listening, if you have been caught in old patterns of overgiving, overdoing, overcaring, or feeling like your worth is tied to how much you sacrifice for others, please hear this. You are allowed to take up space.
Mm.
You are allowed to ask for what you need, and you are worthy of love. And that includes you loving yourself. You are worthy of that. And if this episode has sparked something for you, please share it with a friend who might also need to hear it. Also, consider getting in touch with Karolina. Her links are in the bio or in the show notes, I should say, along with a little bio about her. So check that out. And then until next time, please keep listening to your inner compass. Keep showing up for yourself. You are unscripted. You are unstoppable. And your next chapter is yours to write, my friend. Let us know if you would apply what Karolina has just suggested in taking that pause by giving us comments in the show. And we'd love to hear more about how this series, or this episode, I should say, has impacted you and the quality of your life. Thank
Mm.
you, everyone, for listening. Karolina, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a delight.